Good evening, everyone. Uh, First, I'd like to give thanks to God, the Supreme Creator, because it's through Him all things are possible. Through one humbling themselves through prayer and having faith, all things can definitely be possible. He's played a major role in my life as well as with this project. I also would like to thank Ms. Kendra Ellis, who is the founder of a STEM Excellence program. It's a beautiful virtual museum that she's created. It's very important that we keep history alive every day. Unfortunately, African American history uh, is not told properly, it's left out, it's marginalized. History is controlled by those who control its interpretation. And the majority of time, mainstream America controls that. They don't look like us. So we must begin to continue to tell our own history through various creative mediums. Kendra Ellis, she has a virtual museum. I'm thankful to be a part of what she's doing. And she's also doing something coming up in support of the Art Trotsy runs efforts to celebrate STEM excellence. I will discuss the life and genius of prolific inventor Granville T. Woods. Before I say that, though, when you're looking at history, there's some things you have to take into consideration. One is the time period. The second is the location. And the third, the social slash political norms during that era. Then, but most important is about the lives of people. It's very interchangeable. A person's life has a lot of threads, so you can't speak about everything. But I'll try to do what I can do based upon my journey with the life and legacy of Granville T. Woods. I started the project in 1996, but actually began earlier than that. It goes back to when I was a little boy growing up in public school and at home with my family. I had a fascination for my family's history, and they spoke about my aunts and uncles, and I was curious about the aunts and uncles that I didn't see. But we went out, we had family reunions, the 4th of July and Labor Day. Usually every year, I would see aunts and uncles that I didn't see before, and I would connect that face with that name, and that gave me a greater sense of belonging. But when I transferred that out into my classroom setting, I was like, they were speaking about history, about our founding fathers, but they never mentioned any contributions by African Americans. There were many contributions in that history lesson, but they didn't speak about what we had contributed. So I got the sense as a child that perhaps we didn't create anything. Perhaps we were inferior. Now you got to be understand that I was very shy. I didn't speak that much, and I kept a lot of things inside. Perhaps that's what drives me today. I'm getting the chance to share those feelings now, and it's kind of therapeutic, the work that I do, and I'm driven by my history every day. Uh, and so I'm always also fascinated how a word can make a sentence, how a sentence can make a paragraph to tell a story. And I'm always been fascinated with reading and writing, and so played a major role in me learning more about my history by reading books about. When I was coming up, we had James Baldwin, Ralph Ellison, uh, Richard Wright, uh, and there were others too. Richard Wright wrote a book called The Invisible Man. I felt like I was the invisible boy to a certain extent when we had those history lessons because our names wasn't mentioned. So as I began to read books about like J.A. Rogers, he was a famous historian, uh, I began to learn more about history. But learning history is one part of it. The other part of history is utilizing what you learn through educational programs, seminars, workshops. So when I joined the Black History Committee for the transit system in 1991, I found my purpose and direction in life. We began to put programs together. They was already doing it before me, but when I jumped in that seat, I began doing that with them. And I would write something every year on our history lesson, on our heritage. And they would use that put in a package. We would have to find out who's going to be the theme, what's going to be the theme, who's going to be the speaker for the theme, who's going to open the program for the speaker, and who are some of the other people we're going to have on our program to make it dynamic. And so it was a joy going out to going to other Black History programs and trying to find out what they're doing and bringing some people from their side into my side. We had a stipend to give them, a small one, and it was a joy to be a part of that and writing those history lessons every year from 1991 to 1996. In 1996, I'm watching the PBS documentary, Transportation in America. And when it went off, it didn't mention any contributions by African Americans. So that took me back when I was a little boy. And I'm saying, if a little boy is watching this program now, he may get those same feelings that I did, that we didn't contribute to anything. And that's so untrue. So rather than dwell on the negative, I began to move on the positive. And that's my motto. And so what I did was I wrote something called The African Presence in Transportation. And lo and behold, what I found out would make us proud. I began our history in Africa, not in America, because no one's history should begin in slavery, not based upon mainstream interpretation of African Americans. We was always here, but we were not in bondage before the Europeans came. We was already here, but the Europeans did bring us enslaved in bondage forcefully. So I don't want to speak about that history. So I spoke about the history in Africa and transportation, about caravans and commerce, the Phoenicians dealing with ships and navigation, nautical inventions. Christopher Columbus, when he came to the shores of North America, the ship was navigated by the Nino brothers, who were the Moors. And I spoke about the stagecoach drivers, Pony Express drivers, and a lot of them look like us. And then I began to look at inventors. Elijah McCoy, automatic coupling device, great mechanical engineer. Andrew Beard, Jenny Coupler. And so I came across Granville T. Woods. And there was others, but Granville T. Woods stuck out because they were speaking about the New York City subway centennial when it began to be constructed in it was in September of 1900. And so in 1998, when I finished this research on Granville T. Woods on transportation, I noticed that his name was not mentioned among the men who played a prominent role in the subway system inception. And I wanted him to be a part of that, not to be left out. And so rather than dwell on the negative, I began to move on to positive. Yes, once again. And I went on a fact-finding crusade for 6 years. The challenge that I had was connecting Granville T. Woods' electric railway systems to the New York City transportation system. He had 15 electric railway systems, beginning in, I would say, 1897, 1896. And a lot of times he would have a patent idea, but he had to get the money to get a patent application. And that was a $15 fee. It was a $20 fee for them to issue you a patent at that time as well. And so what I wanted to do is find that connection. And it took me a while to find that connection. And I went to the Schomburg. I was reading books that were very generic. And the librarian that I knew, her name was Sharon, she told me to go upstairs to the archives and they have some information on Mr. Woods. And I went up there. They told me to sit down. They brought out a large envelope after a while. And in there was some issues about Granville T. Woods and the American Engineering Company, who was seeking to utilize his invention without giving him equitable compensation. And from there, I began going to the New York Public Library to find out some more information dealing with that conflict. I also went to the Brooklyn Public Library because he demonstrated his inventions in Brooklyn Coney Island, that area, and I found information there. I went to the Science and Technology Library on 34th Street and Madison Avenue, and I found information there. Uh, but where I found the most of the information came out of a book by Professor Rayvon Fauché. It spoke about blacks during the age of inventions, about Granville T. Woods, Lewis Latimer, who's another great inventor, and another inventor that I can't really recall his name. He did something for the post office. But speaking about Granville T. Woods, I was like, where did he get all this information from? So I look at the index of the book, and I came across where he got that information was at the National Archives in College Park, Maryland. And I decided to go down there and see what I could find. And I really didn't agree with his concept of Granville T. Woods once I began to learn more about Granville T. Woods. He had some facts, and he missed some facts, as though we all do. But my concept of what was going on as I began to learn more about it, I began to see what Granville T. Woods was going through during his inventive part of his life, the challenges he had to overcome. And so I figured I can go down there, make some copies, and come back to New York because I still was working. I was doing work on this journey while I was still on the clock of the MTA. So I had to do a multitask. And I began to go down there, make copies, come back to New York City, and read the copies while I was working and at home. Go down there, make copies, and back and forth. I did that for quite a spell. I didn't get any money to do that. I did it because it needed to be done. And I was driven. I was on a mission. And finally, I came across, and I was reading something like I always did, and I heard a voice, and it said to read it again. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it again. And I read it again. I read it, didn't really grasp what it was trying to share. And I read it again. Now, you got to understand, I'm a very spiritual man. And I would pray like I do regularly. I would also go to Granville T. Woods' gravesite. And Granville T. Woods' gravesite is in St. Michael's Cemetery. Before I even go further, let me share a couple things about whose shoulders that I stand on. We all should respect and honor and give the acknowledgement to the people that came before me. And there was a woman by the name of Abiola Sinclair. She wrote this magazine called the Black History Magazine. And she was a daily critic for the Amsterdam News for many years. And this is the first edition. And the article she had in this about Granville T. Woods was Genius of the Railroad. And I was fascinated by this article. It had a lot of information about not only about his inventions, but what he had to go through during that time period. It was a very rigid segregation and breaking through corporate America, dealing with the invention. That was quite a journey for Granville T. Woods. It was an uphill task, the majority of his life. And so I got a chance to write her, and I met her, and we began helping her with this Black History Magazine. She became my mentor, Abiola Sinclair, bless her soul. And there was another gentleman who was a historian named Middleton A. Harris. He wrote a book called The Black Book. I suggest everybody to pick up a copy of The Black Book. And he's the one that was able to find Granville T. Woods' gravesite. He also was able to get a school name for Granville T. Woods and get Western Electric to put a bronze nameplate at Granville T. Woods' gravesite. So I would go there, and I began to pray to Granville T. Woods. Yes. And I would pray to find out what I should do next. And I also would pray to our Supreme Creator. And each time I would wait, listen, and when I heard a voice in my mind, I began to move forward on that. I didn't hesitate. And everywhere I was directed to go, I found something. Yes, I indeed. So I came across those papers because I had so many papers that I came across at the archives in College Park. And each time I went there, I began to pick up his story. Now, in there was some information right on this plaque here. Is a plaque back here on this side. You may not be able to see it, but it's right in this book here. I suggest everybody get a copy of my book, by the way, too. Granville T. Woods, African American Communication and Transportation Pioneer. It'll share his life story from beginning to end. So that was a key for me to get Granville T. Woods acknowledged by the MTA. So I had to show evidence. And that's where I came across that evidence. Because that voice told me to read it 3 times. When you're filing for a patent, like as I had mentioned before, you have to have a $15 filing fee. And then a $20 issuing fee for them to give you a patent. So you have a time period. And if you don't have that time period, you have to reapply for the patent. It's just that simple. So what he had to do, when you have a patent, you need a patent attorney. And he had a great patent attorney in Cincinnati, Louis Montgomery Jose. When he came to New York, he had a patent attorney named Howard Townsend. He was the head of the electrical department at the U.S. Patent Office for many years. And he knew a lot of some people, great people, inventors, as well as companies that manufacture electrical goods. And one of them was General Electric. And the head of the electrical department of General Electric was Albert Davis. So he wrote to Albert Davis. And Albert Davis, what he did, he paid to amend the patent. They reapplied their patent, then they amended the patent, and then they purchased the third real patent, okay? And that was the evidence that I presented to the Transit Authority with a backdrop leading up to that story there and after. But it wasn't the book. It was basically 6 years of research. And I had to get a graphic artist to put that research together. And through the grace of God, once again, I got a call from Paul Ferranges. And he had heard that I was doing work on Granville T. Woods. And where did he hear that from? From a couple sources. Virginia Fields was the borough president of Manhattan. She assisted me in opening that door. Roger Toussaint was the president of the New York City Transit Authority, the union president, local union 100. And then the third one was also a mighty voice, was the MTA Office of Civil Rights, Cheryl George and Ken Neal. Ken Neal was the director, and she assisted him. And she assisted me in putting my exhibit in a proper context, because I had so much information, so I had to narrow it down. And I did, through her help. I knew different areas about his life. And so when he called me, I had everything that was all ready. And he looked it over, and he said, "This looks good. Could you put this into an exhibit?" I said, "Sure." So with my graphic artist, Adrian Hunter, he had did some research with me with my Black Heritage articles for the MTA. He had did some information on this as well, the African presence in transportation. So when I was doing work on Granville T. Woods, he was assisting me with that. So once you get a good person to work with, you stick with them if you got any sense. And I did. And so with my research, if you see, I don't know if you can see the whole exhibit here, but it's 4 panels here. And those 4 panels are the induction telegraph system, that's behind me, and the electric railway system. 2 of them, and it's not behind me, is the electric motor regulator and the dead man's handle. Those inventions were revolutionary. And so Granville T. Woods was electrical genius that basically was able to harness electricity during the dawn of the electric age, okay? And I can go on and on about that. So In 2004, it was the opening of the Subway Centennial operation on April 28th, 2004, a century of progress. And they showcased the Granville T. Woods exhibit. And they made 4 million Metro cards. I don't know if you can see that. And that was a glorious day in my life. And that's when my dream became a reality. Okay? And that Metro card says, this self-educated African American made subway travel possible in New York City when he patented the third rail system for conducting electric power to railway cars. That's very powerful from the people that should have acknowledged him 100 years before I did. But the thing is, he did get that recognition, and that's a way to preserve our history. And I love not only to speak about it and raise funds for my foundation with my Black History items. I once again, I suggest everybody go to my website, and you'll see many things about the David L. Head Foundation that I began in 2006, a 501c3, and lectures, programs, tours. Anyway, we need to get our history out. I suggest everybody get that history out. It could be in a calendar, it could be in a picture, it could be on a t-shirt, a cap, even a button, a coloring book. Get that history out, a puzzle, a board game. We need to share that history with all ages, not just the young. I emphasize the young. But another point I want to share with you regarding this journey was that while I was doing this, people told me to keep on keeping on, brother, and I did. So I went to Coney Island, and I knew he had demonstrated his electric railway inventions in Coney Island, and so I went back and worked with the community board there, and that takes time, and I was able to get a street name in Granville T. Woods' honor. Miss Kendra Ellis, she'll showcase that. I have a whole table on a lot of other things about the project, and I don't want to go over there because the camera's on me here, and I want to stay here with you. I also did a street name for Granville T. Woods in Coney Island. On Stillwell Terminal, I was able to get him inducted in the Hall of Fame in Coney Island, for he's the inventor that modernized the roller coaster with electricity. And I did a documentary on Granville T. Woods, and it won a Telly Award. And be mindful that while I was working on this project, I was getting help from a lot of people that made it possible to become a reality. I was a driving force, but along the way, I'm asking for assistance here, there, remaining committed and putting it all together. But along the way, I got help from other people. And so I just want to mention that. One of the people that I must mention, beside Adron, who did the graphics, was Wilbur Hanson, who lives in Philadelphia. He was able to get information and pictures that I wasn't able to find. After I got Mr. Woods acknowledged, I felt that I shouldn't be selling the research that I had accumulated for 6 years. I had to tell his whole story to give this great man what he really deserved, from the moment he was born until he passed, that whole journey. And so that took another 8 years. So this book is 14 years of research that will amplify the story as well as validate it. Right now, what I want to do is a big screen production for Granville T. Woods. He deserves a big screen production. A lot of people don't read. There's a regurgitating of movies about Black enslavement. It's time to move on from that. We need to show great Black minds like Granville T. Woods, and there's many others as well, how they contribute to the growth, development, and the wealth of this nation and beyond. And those are the stories I like to focus on. But let me take a look at Granville T. Woods, because the project is a twofold project. When I come out as Granville T. Woods, and I did have my costume, and I come out and present that in my Granville T. Woods project presentation, the full presentation with the exhibit, the street name, the books, and that's when I begin to take on the character of Granville T. Woods. So from his point of view, he had laid the foundation as a young boy with a hands-on education, working as a blacksmith, and working in a machine shop, repairing tools, preparing parts for the train, and making parts for the train. He literally learned from the ground up. So while other engineers was seeking learning from an educational point in school, he was learning from a hands-on point of view, and he had professional craftsmen that was assisting him along the way. So when he began to learn more about electricity, he was fascinated by electricity, and he was very tenacious. He understood that the railroad system needed improvement. He opened his own shop and began to make money fixing electrical parts, electrical motors, anything he can get his hands on. And then he began to invent, because there was problems on the railroad. And he began to invent wireless communication devices, the electric transmitter, the telegraph phony, and the induction telegraph system. He had problems with Thomas Edison and another inventor, Lucius Phelps, and he beat them both into patent interference cases. He was always in court dealing with patent infringements, and he was in court so much he became a patent attorney. And when he was selling his inventions to General Electric, he couldn't get any royalties. A lot of inventors, they get some kind of percentage, even though they sell their invention, they get some kind of royalties, but he wasn't able to do that. And I always wondered why he would invent the invention multiple times, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And I'm like, wow, was he doing that? Because that was the only way he was going to get compensation. So when he sold the third rail device for General Electric, he had to sell it outright. So what did he do? I have an improvement. So he came back and sold that one. I have another improvement. So he had 4 different improvements for General Electric, and they bought them all between 1900 and 1904. In 1904, that's when they began utilizing the subway system, put it into action, began operating it through his inventions. And so that story hasn't been told. I'm happy, and through the grace of God, once again, that I was able to share that story. Now, when I look back, this is the month of April. It was 2004, and now it's 2024. So it's been over 20 years ago. I'm still on this project. I'm still healthy enough to share this story. So take advantage of that. Whoever's out there, I can come to your location and share this story in your space as well. And I'll be happy to do that while I'm here. We can work out the arrangements with my foundation, and I'll be glad to speak to you and collaborate with you so we can get this information out to the general public, especially the youth who needs to know about these great black minds. There's so much emphasis on sports and entertainment. We have so many great people in that, but it gets overcooked. We need to share more information about great black minds, and there's so many of them. When you're looking at the electric light with Lewis Latimer, the cell phone, Jesse Russell, fiber optics, Thomas Mensa, the electric microphone, James West, Gladys West, the GPS system, Gladys West. So the names go on and on. That Jerry Lawson, he did the game changing with the video game cartridges. He's the father of that. The father of Silicon Valley was a guy by the name of Roy Clay Sr. He was a computer engineer, and he worked for Hewlett and Packard, the first software company in Silicon Valley. He led the team. Roy Clay Sr. So the PC computer, Mark Dean holds 3 original patents of the PC computer. All of these things that we use today, we use these things today, but they don't share that history. So we must share that. We must take on the onus and responsibility to share the history, especially to the youth, but to the world, that we are here. We always have been here. We have contributed. I'm not taking anything away from inventors that don't look like us, but our story needs to be told. We were not a footnote, but we was a keynote. Remember that. We were a keynote, and we're still a keynote today in science, in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We have professionals. So when I came to Detroit, the Charles H. Wright Museum was the largest African American museum in the world. Yes, before they put the one up in Washington. And they embraced my research on Granville T. Woods, compensated me, and integrated my research into the inspiring minds, African Americans in science and technology. And I was so honored to be a part of that opening ceremony. But what I told them was that what we need to do is bring out modern day trailblazers in STEM, like they look like us. And they said, let's go with it. So my program with my colleague, Dr. Terrence Dillard, from September, it was July of 2013, all the way up to COVID struck. We was bringing out a STEM professional once a month to and exposing these kids to these STEM professionals, these curious young minds, and it was sharing those inspirational journeys and how they have to overcome certain things and let the kids know you can do this too. And yes, they can. So what I like to say, no one can change the past, but we can all play a part in changing a new paradigm for our generation and beyond. We have that responsibility. And so once again, I thank Kendra with the Virtual Museum to be a part of this. And it's always an honor and delight to speak about this great man, Granville T. Woods. Thanks once again. So this is the 20th anniversary, and I'm happy that I'm alive and I can share this story over and over again. And so we do what we can do, and but it's better than not doing anything at all. Remember that. We can, we have, we will continue to do that. So don't dwell on the negative and get caught up with the negative rhetoric that's going on. Push that aside. Stay focused on moving and enriching your community in different ways. And we all have our special gifts. Identify yours, develop it, and allow that to empower you and your community. Thank you. Thank you, Kendra. Thank you, Granville T. Woods, the spirit of Granville T. Woods. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I think, yep, that'll work. Yep, that was good. Indeed. Here's some information that's on the table about Granville T. Woods over the years. I worked for the MTA for 30 years. This is my years of service for 25, the appreciation in 2010. They gave me this. I'm proud of that. This is the article on Granville T. Woods dealing with the African presence in transportation. This is Abiola's magazine. This is the Granville T. Woods acknowledgement. These are the key people, this is the MTA chairman and the past chairman, the board member, James Harding, chairman Peter Calco, Virgil Conway, ex-chairman, Granville T. Woods Subway Centennial exhibit, traveling exhibit, the Roller Coaster Hall of Fame exhibit, street honoring Granville T. Woods, and the Washington Courthouse. That was very interesting. I failed to mention that. Granville T. Woods in Washington Courthouse when he began working on the induction telegraph system. Yeah, they finally acknowledged him. Okay. That was a special day, going all the way to Ohio and opening the exhibit. They contact me and be glad to be a part of that with the folks down in Ohio. And this is the Inspiring Minds. These are some of the youth that used to come out for those years, and the Inspiring Minds opening exhibit presentation was a permanent exhibit at the Charles Wright Museum for many years. This is the award I received from Dr. Dillard. That was a very special award, the Mary Pacloud Bethune in 2014. That's an award I received, me and Dr. Dillard, for exposing curious young minds to modern day STEM professionals, African American. This is my Telly Award. And yeah, that was and behind that is the tabletop exhibit. These are the brochures. The MTA sponsored this. Okay. There's 4 panels: the induction telegraph, electric railway system, electric motor, with the electric railway. It's another, the electric, it's supposed to be electric motor system as well. And then the dead man's handle. Okay. These it was 4. It's four panels. These are the small tabletop exhibit. This way you can I can utilize this in a classroom setting. And then the larger exhibit over here, that's more of dealing with a bigger space. So when I come out to an auditorium, I can come out and share this, and I have over the years. This is basically a replica of the original exhibit I donated to Granville T. Woods Elementary School in Brooklyn, PS 335. And so I went there and I would give a presentation on a regular basis when I was in New York. And eventually the exhibit got old and I donated the exhibit, and then I made this exhibit. And this was, I think it was over $5,000 to make this exhibit. And it really needs to be upgraded now. I do the best I can with it. Yeah, that's what we can do. We can do the best we can. And that's what I do. And I try to move things forward. And so thanks once again for listening and hearing this journey that I went on. And it still continues because I want to do the big screen movie and perhaps even a play on his life with the right creative people putting it together with my research. And so feel free to call me at 917-517-1770, 917-517-1770, or my website, davidlheadfoundation.com. You can email me at dlhfoundation51@gmail.com, dlhfoundation51@gmail.com. Stay connected with Kendra Ellis. She's doing some great things with some great historians, great stories about our history, and linking to her on an ongoing journey moving forward the next generation. Thank you, Kendra.